Incoming transmission. Initiating data compilation protocol. Compilation complete. Enhancing. Enhancing. Initializing data playback. Code alpha. Begin playback.
Good morning, everybody. This is Matt at Planet Tobor, and it is 7:07 a.m. and this is Madness AM for July 10th, 2015. And if you're watching this, not only listening, but if you're watching this, this is a new thing I'm trying out right now. So bear with me with some of this nonsense. I'm doing video this time to see how that goes, and I'm doing it through OBS. So I'm not doing it live, like a live stream, but I'm, controlling all the sound bites and stuff and the audio cues and the video cues, everything manually. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, yeah, new podcast, which I'm going to be doing more of these from now on. I got a whole new schedule and crap, and I'll get into that in a second. But doing one of these every weekday, forever and ever. We'll see for as long as I can. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, 7 o'clock in the morning. So we're actually making use of the original conceit of this derpy little show, which it used to be, getting up at super early in the morning and just kind of seeing what the hell comes out of my mouth. Which sounds like I had a really interesting night last night or something. But no, I popped a Benadryl and passed out. So there you go. There's my wild and wacky evening for you. But yeah, new podcast. Well, same format, same groggy early in the morning crap, except for this morning really because I've got a whole new schedule now. Before our apartment fire, which was 2 years ago, almost to the day, 2 years ago, July 4th, I had this whole sequence set up where I had my whole day planned out and I had a to-do list and crap. And I used this piece of software called Rainlander, or Rainlander, spelled like calendar, but with rain in front, I don't know why. It might sound clumsy vocally, but put into practice is a really cool piece of software because you can set up recurring events and recurring tasks each day. And you can, exclude some days like weekends and stuff like that. Or, if you have stuff coming up, you can be like, I'm not doing this today. So exclude this so that these tasks don't pop up every day. And it's kind of like a little calendar setup that's sort of bound to your desktop, and you can mouse over it and it will show you what you have going on and everything. And it's a really neat little piece of software. And I know I've mentioned it a couple of years ago when I was doing these podcasts regularly, but back in the saddle again. So yeah, I've got that all set up again. I think most of the reason why I stopped using it and everything was because of the fire and everything. And I had all this crap that I was doing throughout the day, like, my webcomic and this podcast and a couple other regular things that, the fire just kind of took the wind out of my sails and also wiped out all my art supplies and everything. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing the podcast. So, and then the game, Savage, started to get more serious, especially after the Kickstarter. So I was just like, I'm just going to work on Savage exclusively. And then any routine I had sort of fell apart, and I was just like, whenever I was awake, I would work on the game, which hasn't changed a whole lot up until recently. A couple of days ago, I was like, I need a damn routine, because how can you break a routine if you don't have a routine? So I set all that up again, and this is my first day getting back into it. With how I have it set up, I'm an hour past my little due time or due date for the podcast. but that was because I was setting up OBS and trying to figure out what would be the best way to try to record video along with the audio, because the YouTube channel, I had these big lofty goals for it and stuff, and there's just been no content on there whatsoever, especially over the past 2 years. So I was like, I'm gonna try to pump out some more stuff for it. So 2 birds with 1 stone, this thing, I guess. You get a podcast and a video. And of course, in the video description, I'll put the link to the actual just audio only, so you don't have to deal with all this fancy crap on the screen. We're being very, very loose with fancy here, I guess, because this is a little bit junky. But I'm also working on a complete site redesign with the impending release of Savage. I know, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about getting closer to wrapping that thing up. But I want to give the site a fresh coat of paint because it's very clumsy at the moment, and mostly because with Squarespace, which is the company that I go through for hosting and editing and design and everything, it has its own DIY collection of tools that you can use to kind of tailor your website and all that stuff. But they had recently kind of shifted to almost a whole new platform. It was called Squarespace 5, and then this new thing they're calling Squarespace 6, I think. They might be it might be higher up on the numbers. But that shift, I just kind of threw something together that, worked. Not very elegant or appealing, but it works. It houses everything where I want it and stuff, but I want to make it a little nicer looking, and I've got some new logos and general design philosophy that I want to inject into that thing and sort of reinvigorate its corpse, because it's kind of stagnating, and like I said, it's a clumsy design and everything, and I want to kind of juice it up a little bit and make it pretty, make it a little prettier. So yeah, there's all that stuff going on. We finally moved into a new place, so anybody that watches the live streams for the game, this might look a little different in the video here. This is just like kind of a bare wall behind me and a different sort of lighting setup. I guess I can turn off that. But anyway, new place a couple weeks ago, much bigger than our studio that we were living in, which is amazing. I don't have to work kind of hunched over my keyboard in the darkness, typing away with all the lights off, only by the glow of the monitor, which is absolutely awesome. We moved into a 2-bedroom and turned one of the bedrooms into an office, so I could put all my silly crap in here, and my desk and everything else. And we actually have doors now. We have doors, which is, I know it's like, wow, never quite appreciated this invention until we were living in a studio for 2 years without rooms, essentially, except, there was a door that separated the bathroom from the rest of the place. But, before, essentially the entire place was our bedroom, because it was a little tiny shoebox. But we moved into a newer place, and we actually have like a living room space and a bedroom, a couple bathrooms. So now I'm like, which one do I use? Decisions. So it's kind of incredible. It feels like, high-end mansion living by comparison. And Bo's clients that she has at 24, that she trains, because she's a personal trainer, have just given us, they've been getting rid of furniture and things, and so we've been able to kind of populate our new digs accordingly. So it's just, it's incredible. Super grateful to everyone who's helped, and our friend Frank, who's just been instrumental in getting us up and running in this place. So it's just, it's pretty cool. I feel almost like I'm trespassing on someone else's property, because I haven't gotten used to any of this yet. And since a lot of it is all belonged to like Bo's clients and stuff. We got like a little kitchen table and a couple chairs and stuff, and like a coffee table and some end tables and stuff like that. It's like, whoa, this is kind of like a Frankenstein of someone else's place, and it's all like really like quality stuff. Like the other day, her friend was like, we have this 42-inch plasma TV that we don't want anymore. So you want it? We're just like, okay. So they gave us that thing, and we set it up in the living room on one of the tables that we got as well. And what's the first thing that we put on the TV was Frasier. So if you don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs, I'll tell you right now, you put it on you get the Netflix Ouya app, stick your Ouya into your TV, and just chill and watch some Frasier Crane. So, that was how we kind of christened our new, new-ish, new for us plasma screen maiden voyage, was with some Frasier goodness. So, yeah, man, it's been crazy. 2 years in that little place, and now we're in a much better place than what we initially even moved out here in. So pretty cool. So it's productivity and just general inspiration and morale. Unit morale is high. So, hence me just kind of wanting to get back into doing other things surrounding the game, just to keep it fresh, because you're working on something as massive as this game that I'm working on, and you want to keep yourself from burning out. So, and what I had found, like before our apartment fire, was that if I had these other little mini projects to do, these things that had solid, starts and ends, like a podcast. You start a podcast, you finish the podcast, it's all recorded, nice and neat and tidy. Put a bow on it, upload it, done. Those little tiny victories kind of give you almost more fuel for when you go back to working on this game that sometimes you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel with. So it gives you, a renewed energy, a shot in the arm to keep going. So that's kind of the idea of getting back into doing all this stuff again. So I want to eventually get back to doing my comics, because I miss my drawing. Was drawing the little pictures, and all that stuff, and thinking about doing some more content for Planet Tobor in general. I haven't quite figured out what yet, but I know I'm getting the wargaming itch once again, especially now with wargaming and just miniature gaming in general and stuff. Any sort of tabletop thing, starting to get that itch again. Especially with the news of Age of Sigmar, and all of the rules readily available on Games Workshop's site now. The rules and all the war scrolls, which are essentially the unit cards. So if you have minis already, you can just go and download the rules for free, which is crazy for Games Workshop when it had such a massive barrier for entry for like Warhammer Fantasy Battle and Warhammer 40K and some of the other sort of like sub game systems, like Necromunda and stuff like that, where they were kind of expensive. And then if you wanted to play something like Warhammer 40K, you had to get your rule book, which was like $50 some or something, and then you had to get your codex books, which was your army books, so your special rules for your chosen army, like your Space Marines, your Orcs, or your Eldar, and whatever else. And then you had to buy your damn models, which were for like a basic little packet, like a tactical squad of Marines, it was at least $25, maybe even 40. I can't. It's been such a long time since I actually bought any minis, but and I've been doing this in varying degrees, in some kind of capacity, since I was like 9 or 10, like 4th grade, 5th grade. And I mean, then it was, like, Mom, could you give me this? Look at this. It's so rad. She's like, I don't know if that's a toy. I don't care. Give it to me. Must have. So I think it would be cool to do a video series of start doing some hobby stuff, especially since I don't really get out, which is a bummer because these games are so social. You know, you kind of need someone else to play these with. But I've always been kind of drawn more to the hobby aspect of it. Well, hobby being not so much the tactical and gaming side of it, but more the collecting and the painting and everything. Don't get me wrong, I've always wanted to dive into the actual, getting in there and playing other people. But it's just rough, and I've never really been a big versus game person. But I over the years I had friends that I tried to rope in on this thing, much to their parents' chagrin, before we were adults. Where it was like, hey, look at this cool like thing. You know, tell your mom to buy you like $200 worth of miniatures. Which, I mean, was never the case with me anyway. It was always like, I can get this little box of stuff and then maybe wait a year and get another one and add to whatever I had. But it was always like, okay, this year maybe I'm into orcs. Okay, this year now I want this skeleton, this undead chariot thing or something. Well, you know what? Maybe I want to try out these little like dark elf guys or something. But essentially what all of that means is, I never really got too deep into it. But I've been collecting these miniatures and picking up starter sets along the way over the years. So I think it would be kind of cool and funny to do a video series starting out with like some of the first minis I ever painted, which miraculously have made it through the fire. So I still have the very, very first Space Marine that I ever painted from 2nd edition, and it's terrible. Oh God, it's something. The wrong paint and shit. Like I got like a bottle of like Michael's acrylic high gloss blue paint, and I just like slapped that on the little Space Marine guy. And so it'd be kind of cool to do a video series and go back through and all that shit. And to keep me kind of interested in furthering the hobby along too, instead of just getting real into it and then stopping because I have nothing really else to do with it except maybe paint some stuff and not really get out and game with it. Doing videos too might actually make me a bit more excited about going down the street to this place called Dragon's Lair in Austin, Texas, and they do Warhammer nights and stuff, and among many other things, they've got comics and board games and tabletop games, every shape, size, and description down there. So it's a nerd paradise down there. So and now that we live so close to it, it's a decent walk. It's maybe at a leisurely pace. It's maybe about a 25-minute to a half-hour walk. But I like long walks, so it would feel like me marching my little dudes into battle or something. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to explore some of that. Like I said, because of the Age of Sigmar stuff, it's kind of piqued my interest a little bit. I know, and I always keep up with like videos and stuff, people talking about their wargaming stuff, and mostly trying to live vicariously through other people who are actually knee deep in the hobby. So Age of Sigmar looks very interesting, and it looks like it's just kind of obliterated. It's nuked Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition rules into oblivion. It's a complete resetting of that world. It's almost like it's a whole new thing, and a lot of it looks like it plays a little like 40K, in that formations are much more loose. Like in Fantasy Battle, you had very strict rank and file formations. You had maybe like 5 wide and 3 deep or something of like models, and they'd pivot and turn and stuff, and there were like flanking rules and charging into someone's side or into someone's rear. But it was a lot more about the movement than it was about like getting stuck in and just throwing dice. But which I can appreciate as well, but it was very rule intensive. I remember it being a lot more intense than 40K in a lot of respects, with trying to outmaneuver each other and everything. So the rules were very complicated, and I remember like units had certain rules when they were fighting like infantry versus when they were fighting like a war machine versus when they were fighting a hero or a giant monster or something like that, and vice versa. So it got complicated. You're always like looking through rule books and stuff. The last time I tried to do this was with my buddy Tom, who we don't live near each other anymore, but I remember I bought the whatever edition it was. It might have been like 7th, where the starter kit was like the Empire and some orcs. So I was like, hey, how about you want to choose one of these armies and I'll choose the other one, and we'll paint them and stuff, and we'll get into fighting and everything. We painted a few of them. We tried to play a few games, and it was complicated. And before that, I had like Bretons and Lizardmen, so whatever edition that was, and it was very really complicated. It wasn't the same. I mean, hell, even like 6 or 7 years ago, it wasn't the same sort of digital and social landscape that we have now with, a ton of YouTube videos and all these resources online where you can go online and you can watch people play without leaving your home. So you could just be a crusty little pariah hanging out in your room watching these dudes play the game and getting a feel for it, and being like, oh, okay, that's what that rule means, and that's what you do in that situation. And so it's very different. Now you have access to all of these resources to make getting into this thing easier. But I'm excited about the kind of casual nature of Age of Sigmar. And I can understand why a lot of people are not, because it's Games Workshop essentially saying, we're not going to be supporting the traditional Warhammer Fantasy structure anymore. So we're gonna smack you in the face with this new thing. But I think they did a really interesting thing here by making all of their rules and war scrolls or unit cards free, so that anybody who, I mean, hell, I could play it with like Hero Quest miniatures if I wanted to. There are no points values, and you can structure your army in any way you want to, and so I think a lot of it is going to hinge on what you and your opponent kind of want to do. So I think a lot of it is really geared toward like narrative play, where you're trying to construct interesting stories and things like that, and campaign settings. And it looks like it scales really well too. Like, a couple models fighting each other to massive armies and stuff. Because I have heard that there's going to be like formation scrolls and stuff if you want to. What's the word I'm looking for? Like regiment your units more strictly and stuff. You're going to get certain bonuses and things. But it looks like you can have some really interesting encounters with only a handful of models too, which is kind of exciting to me, and sort of makes you feel a little bit closer to each model. You're more down in there with everybody, and so I might actually give it a try with what I have laying around. Like I said, I've got a ton of Warhammer Fantasy Battle miniatures laying around, some painted, most of them not. So that might be kind of interesting to explore. So getting excited about all that stuff. So anyway, yeah, that might be something that I look into doing for the website. And what else? I was talking to my little brother last night on the phone, and he's really, really into getting a Nintendo Entertainment System. And he's, I think he's like 11 now or something. So my little brother Liam really wants the old gray box NES. The cartridges you take out and you blow into and crap like that. So I thought that was kind of amazing. I don't know if that is due to me talking about it to him a lot and like showing him games and things, or him kind of seeking this stuff out on his own and that stuff resonating with him. It being more of a theater of the mind kind of thing, because all those old chunky pixely graphics looking the way they did allowed for, I think, more projection. When something's a little bit more cartoony, you can kind of step into the character a little bit more, and your mind sort of fills in the blanks for certain things, and that consequently is supposed to sort of engage you a little more into the character and the world and the setting and everything. And It's all that imagination juice in your mind working with the product instead of the thing being photorealistic and slapping you in the face with all of its own prefab scripted events and things. So I don't know what it is, but the prospect is kind of exciting to me. And I was talking to him on the phone. And he's like, I want to make a video game too, just like you. I was like, huh. Well, what if I thought about doing some tutorials for like Game Maker Studio and maybe some pixel art tutorials and stuff. And he kind of was like, oh, that'd be awesome. You could tell me how to do that stuff. I would, make videos and stuff and put them online and so that you could watch them because he's in California, I'm in Texas. But, cause he hangs out on YouTube a lot and watches like old gaming videos and stuff. And I think that's why he wants a Nintendo, is because he's watched, Legend of Zelda, and he'll say, he's like, I also want a Game Genie so that I can cheat on the games. So I was like, oh, that sounds like me, except that stuff was advertised to me as a kid. He has actively gone out and, kind of sought this stuff out, which is kind of fascinating. It didn't come to him, in between breaks of like cartoons and stuff on television. He had to go and look for this stuff. So yeah, I mean he seems to kind of be into that whole thing, and wants to try making a video game. And there's so many interesting tools out there right now that the means for somebody to get into creating games and things is so much. The barrier for entry is almost destroyed. There are all these free tools that you can download and things tailored for just making a video game. So you don't have to go out and learn C++ or anything like that. You have these software packages that you kind of open up, and a lot of them are very user friendly. It was not like this when I was little and I was like, I'm gonna work for Nintendo, not quite understanding what that meant. I would have shit my pants when I was a kid if all this stuff had existed and I could be like, oh, I can make worlds right now on my computer. I remember trying out a few things too. Like, growing up, I had a Mac, and there weren't a whole lot of options for Mac users. There was this thing called the Cold Stone engine. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but it was an RPG engine that I think you could only use to make very specific type of games, like like Diablo style games, or there was like an isometric view and you like clicked around and that's how you attacked things. And so I don't think there was a whole lot of wiggle room, but there are so many tools out there right now where you can make whatever the hell you wanted. So the prospect of actually making some tutorials using Game Maker Studio is kind of exciting to me. Because what better way to learn your own stuff than to try to teach it? I always, when I'm explaining something to someone else, I always kind of come away from it having learned something a little more better. And I've been asked the same thing too on like certain videos and like places like IndieDB, where people have looked at Savage and stuff and like, hey, can you do an AI tutorial? Because I like the way your guys like jump around. The enemies jump around the screen and stuff and hunt down the player. So I was like, maybe. But talking to him the other day was inspiring and kind of exciting. The prospect of doing something like this. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. But all of that kind of brings me to Savage and Savage Progress. Because I don't want to dive too much into all this other stuff without and for the game to suffer as a result. So, but I think now is a good time to do it because the stuff I'm doing in Savage is so tedious and mind-numbing. I'm like neck deep in level design and very nose to the grindstone kind of level design stuff where I'm working on the random encounter system where you can be outside or you can find a dungeon or a cave or something, and it will generate this sort of map for you, and it'll be different, each time, and it'll take from a collection of pre-made, handmade levels and rooms and things and arrange them in a certain way, or not necessarily a certain way, but like there are scripted layouts, but they will randomly slot rooms in and stuff. All the rooms have to fit together, though. Like the ground level has to fit, the ceiling level has to fit, the walls have to fit from room to room, because you don't want your character to get stuck in a solid when he makes a room transition or something, or a screen transition. But they all have to draw the appropriate tile layer. Like if you're in the desert, it all has to look like, sandstone and desert stuff, and, like pyramids and stuff like that. And desert plants, if you're in the swamp, there's got to be mud and roots and vines and, dead trees and junk like that, and et cetera, et cetera. So each room I have to essentially remake, 6 or 7 times. And then it gets more complicated when you get into the dungeon stuff and cave stuff, where you have to skin the room as if the player was in a cave. You got to skin the room as if the player was in like a dungeon or a crypt or, a desert sort of dungeon play, like palace or something. So it's getting tiresome. But it'll be worth it because this stuff is, there is no easy way to really do any of this stuff. It's all hard work, but it's doable. It's just it takes time. It takes a lot of time. But that's kind of where I'm at with the project now, which it's actually it's starting to get exciting when I go in and test and see how the rooms sort of slot together and fit together, because you run into these kind of interesting layouts, and I'm starting to get at least an hour's worth of playthrough every time I kind of boot it up and play and explore and see what randomized sequences are generated for me. I'm easily able to get like an hour's worth of content just from that stuff, and this is not like even the prefab stages. Like there are going to be like a backbone of stages that are made in a very structured and specific way and are not randomized, and then there will be these sort of exploratory randomized map encounters that will be different every time you go into them. And just from those alone, I'm able to get quite a bit of gameplay out of it, like, and grinding for materials and stuff too, like trying to find trees to harvest for wood and ore and stuff, and enemies to skin and get bones from, so that I can take those and bring them to the forge and create new weapons, armor, and shields. So there's a loop that's finally starting to emerge. That's not just the go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 loop. There's this sandbox loop that's kind of starting to take shape. That's pretty exciting, but there's a lot of polish that still needs to go into it. There's a lot more rooms that need to be generated, because I want there to be a whole lot of a pretty staggering variety of things that you run into. But because I have to remake every room or screen several times over, each room or screen has taken me a little over an hour. So you think about doing 10 rooms, that's about 10 hours. But you can get a lot done in a week it's all about time management, man, which is how I started this podcast. At the beginning was with kind of a reference to time management and using the calendar and all that stuff. So there are a ton of tools that I'm utilizing to help me manage my time better and make it more exciting. So today was the first day that I've tried to do it. And I started out with, working out and everything. Our new place has a gym. Sorry, I digress, but that's what this may as well just be digression AM, non sequitur AM or whatever. But we got a gym in the new place, which is 24/7, so I can just walk downstairs and use the thing. So I'm trying to get back into shape. Ever since the fire, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna eat cheese and fucking, all kinds of high caloric, nutrient rich sludge, sprinkled with chocolate and sugar. And so yeah, we totally nuked our kind of mostly vegan eating habits into orbit. And but now I'm trying to rectify that, because that's part of the time management thing, is having a healthy body, trying to get back to a healthy body, and it just clears my head so much better, keeps me level and focused. So much easier to focus when you haven't eaten a fucking pizza the night before and passed out 10 minutes after eating it, and you wake up and you feel more tired than you were when you went to bed. So yes, trying to get back into shape, all that stuff. So anyway, that was a mouthful of all kinds of junk. I will go ahead and link the audio only version of this cast, vlog, whatever, podcast/vlog, and vice versa on the Madness AM page on Planet Tobor. So that's kind of what I'll leave you with. Make sure to check out planettobor.com for all the stuff that's coming up. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Take care.
One.